After creating over 2,000 videos and lessons, I've outlined a simple model that has helped me and my team build engaging training scripts that keep learners engaged. In this video, I will walk you through the framework so that you have a repeatable process for building training that customers love. Now, for context, when I first started building training content and courses, I had a process that was really based on imagination and what I thought were good ideas. I'd get a project that was going to include a lot of video content. So I would get product documentation, subject matter expert input, I'd interview folks for narrative content, and then I'd start to compile all of that together and try to come up with something that someone would actually want to watch. I was able to create content. Some of that content even won awards. I was able to build out programs. I was able to create videos. But when we launched those programs into the wild, I had a variety of feedback from actual course participants once the program was launched. And for me, that was the most important feedback. Now, mixed feedback is normal on some level, but I didn't really have a repeatable approach to creating content or lessons or courses. And so every time I got that feedback, I generally took it personally, and then I struggled through trying to make better content without a repeatable system. Now, I knew what I did not want in the materials that I created. I did not want to miss the audience completely. I've signed up for programs that seemed like a great idea on the landing page, only to find out once I got it in the program, I had no clue what anyone was talking about. I've also been subjected to watching hours of product documentation turned training videos. And they generally just have a bunch of click here instructions with very little supporting information, context, or why I'm actually doing the thing. I've also been in programs that were super detailed and gave me tons of information, but I literally had no idea why I was doing any of it. So all these examples are not good. But to be fair, subject matter experts aren't always the best creative feedback or the best sounding board. And if you're creating product videos or hardware videos or software videos, the product team will always have more features, more technical details, and more bullet points that you need to include. So I had to create my own system to cut through the conflicting views and perspectives of product teams and subject matter experts and create a way for me to optimize good scripting without random opinions from different team members. So before we look at how to do the scripting framework, let's look at 3 common misconceptions about scripting. First is that scripts are written from beginning to end in order. And that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, most writing is developed in chunks or sections, and it's pieced together and it's edited and arranged for the best flow. The second misconception, especially with training scripts, is that they're written like product documentation or help guides. Again, scripts should be written to sound like an actual human. Often, if you copy and paste from your help documentation, you'll end up sounding like a robot. And also, if you put someone on camera, it makes it extremely challenging to edit any of that content later on because there's really no natural flow to your delivery as a result. And if you hire an actor, it can be difficult for them to start to fill in the gaps naturally as though they know what they're talking about. And then finally, the third misconception is that scripts must be super long and detailed in order to be great. Again, wrong. If you can shorten that content and focus that content, you're doing good things. If you're not providing value in 1 to 3 minutes, you should start cutting stuff. All right, so here's my script writing process. Scripting, like any creative work, is a process, and that process is not always linear, but it does follow a pattern. And if you use a framework, you can repeat that over time and then start to adjust pieces of that framework. Now, because I've been focused on creating training, tutorials, and really focusing on customer education for just over 7 years, my writing and my scripting reflects that. I'm not necessarily a great writer when it comes to viral TikTok videos, and I'm not writing for Netflix series, but I am writing to help communicate usually highly technical information and usually skill-based or outcome-based educational material. Here's my process. First, identify the transformation that needs to take place in the content. And yes, a product tutorial has a transformation. Your viewer must go from point A to point B, and you need to create a vehicle for them to do that. Second is, once I know that path from A to B, I'll develop sections of the script. And I'm actually going to show you a template in a framework, which I call the Hero framework for writing better scripts. And then finally, once you have your framework mapped out, you will review that script for complexity and length and make sure everything sounds natural. So once I get my script reviewed, from there, I'll map it out into a storyboard and then I'll queue that up for production. And there's a whole process for that, but I actually made a simple workshop on the storyboarding process. But really before that, I would say scripting is the first and most important part. All right, let's look at the 3 steps. So first, identify the transformation. You might be thinking, I am creating a product tutorial. What in the world is a transformation and why do I need it? Well, I like to think about it this way. Every viewer needs a reason to care. And you need to target and focus your writing and energy toward that reason. So the transformation has to include 2 things. One is who the learner or viewer is, and the second thing is what they'll be able to do or take away from the content. So identifying what they can do or what they can achieve or what they can learn or what they could just take away from your content will help you focus on fulfilling that promise to your learner. Again, going back to our earlier analogy, I like to think about this as going from A to B. When a viewer starts your content or starts your course or whatever it is you're making, they are at A. And we must transport them to B and deliver the promised transformation. Otherwise, no one will care what you're saying. So this could be really, really simple. You don't have to overcomplicate it. For example, this video takes customer education content creators from winging it when they create content to a predictable framework for developing scripted content that keeps their learners engaged. Second, you want to develop sections of the script. Now, like most writing, some pieces and some of the content will come very naturally, and you'll probably have a ton of information you want to include, especially if you're a subject matter expert yourself. However, other sections will be difficult to develop and will probably require several rounds of revision, additional research, or even someone else's perspective to develop that content out. To ensure that I'm not overwhelmed or lost in the scripting process, I've created a framework called Hero that helps me plug in content as I have it developed. So here's my template. I'll share it on screen here. And by the way, this template is available in the description below, but this outlines the main sections of a Hero script. So first, we have the hook. This is based on the key transformation you're delivering. And it also must include the stakes, or what happens if the viewer does not undergo the transformation that you're promising them. There's a really great framework called the StoryBrand framework that talks about the 7 pieces of a great story. This is kind of borrowed from that framework a little bit and adapted for a training context, right? So we must think about the viewer and the transformation that's taking place. So in our case, we have customer education creators. And going from winging it to repeatable process. We talked earlier that the stakes are no one cares about your script or about your content if you don't give them something or a reason to care the transformation. And in this video, we're walking through a framework to help you have a repeatable scripting process and create content people care about. So then we have the explanation. At the basic level, this is the steps that they are going to take, or this is the problem that they're going to solve and how they solve it, right? But I like to think about this actually in 3 sections. We have the context, so the setup or the background or why they should care or who it's for, right? So kind of bringing that audience or that persona into your script. So we have like who. Then I also like to think about clues or misconceptions, right? And I frame it this way because clues are signs that something is done really, really well. So I could have said in this video, here's what great scripts look like. They do 1, they do 2, they have 3, right? So I could have walked you through clues of a good script or things that look really good that you could reference. Or flip side, I could also show you the thing that they're not. And I felt like in this content, it was easier to tell you what good scripts aren't, right? Or how good scripts aren't made. Right? So I had the 3 misconceptions, and then finally we're walking through the actual steps of the content and actually how to achieve a specific result. I also like to list or think of commonly asked questions or frequently asked questions as well. This can be really, really helpful as you're starting to formulate the script to go ahead and just preemptively answer the things that folks are going to ask or have questions about as they follow up with you. If you're building out a program or a course, it's also a really, really great way to add in bonus content, add in supporting helpful information about what you're instructing. Next, I like to include some sort of repetition or recap. So because this is training and education, I'm always thinking about like how do we simplify and how do we continue to bring up those concepts or additional opportunities for folks to remember and kind of reflect and learn that information, right? And then finally, we have the outro. I like to call this the opportunity. I think that we should be able to invite the viewer, invite our audience into the next step with us, right? So if we're delivering a course, that might be practice, what they've learned. Whoops. That might be practice. Or that might be some sort of knowledge check, or that might be some sort of assessment. If it's just content that's online, it might be an invitation to engage with you in some way. Or if it's preparing for an exam, it's where to go to get help, or any number of things. Finally, I take the content that I put in the hero script. Once I've written it out and I've revised these different sections and organized it, now I actually go back and I review it for complexity and length and flow. And so I want to make sure that I align the content to my audience, the ones I'm hoping to reach, and then also make sure that things sound appropriate for that industry or for that segment or for that product. Now, there's a great app actually referenced to me on LinkedIn by Michelle over at Snike. So thanks, Michelle. And that is the Hemingway app. It's a fantastic free tool. I mean, there's a paid version, but there is a free version that works in the browser. And it allows you to copy and paste your content into the app. Then you can get a complexity and grammar check on everything. It'll help you rewrite certain sentences, all sorts of things. It's amazing. But, I'll do that. Then I also read the script aloud. And I try to do that throughout the process as I'm writing. I kind of hear it in my head. But if you actually speak it out loud, it helps you make sure that it sounds human. Like it sounds like one person, one voice. Especially in training, you'll get subject matter experts who are contributing content. You'll get documentation from other folks. There's a lot of inputs in the training space. And so just reading it aloud, going back and forth, helps make sure that you sound natural. All right, there you have it. My 3-step process for developing scripted training content in a predictable and repeatable way that keeps your learners engaged. To recap, those 3 steps were: identify the key transformation, then develop sections of the script using the hero framework, and then finally review for complexity, length, and flow. I've linked the template that I used here just to kind of illustrate the hero framework in the description below. Feel free to grab that from our site. I've also bundled it with a recording of this walkthrough and then some other helpful information. All right, so that wraps the process. If this video provided any value at all, please like, subscribe, do all the things. And if I left something out, or you think there's other resources that would really add value to the conversation and this community we are building, please let me know in the comments below. Again, I'm Matt Tidwell, the founder of Think Through, helping brands build training their customers love, and I will see you in the next video.